Chapter 1. The Man in the Closet. Micah Hall woke to the soft pressure of a small hand on his shoulder. His daughter Gracie stood beside his bed at 2 a.m., her face pale in the darkness. "Daddy, there's a man in my closet." Micah's protective instincts flared. He sat up, glancing at his sleeping wife Camille. "Sweetie, it's just a nightmare. Want to sleep with us?" "No, Daddy." Gracie's voice trembled. "He told me his name. He said he knows you." The world stopped. Micah's blood turned to ice. "What's his name?" "Cornell." 12 years of carefully constructed peace shattered in a single word. Micah grabbed the flashlight from his nightstand, his hands steady despite his racing heart. He'd built a good life here, a custom woodworking business, a beautiful family, a home in the suburbs of Springfield, Missouri. He'd buried his past so deep he'd almost convinced himself it was just a nightmare. He walked down the hallway to Gracie's room, his bare feet silent on the hardwood floors he'd installed himself. The door hung open. Inside, shadows danced across walls covered with drawings of horses and rainbows. The closet door stood ajar. Micah pushed it open fully, shining the flashlight inside. Cornell Baldwin stood there, aged by madness and time. His once athletic frame had become gaunt, his eyes sunken but burning with an intensity that made Micah's stomach drop. He wore dark clothes and held something in his hand, a photograph. "Hello, Micah," Cornell whispered. "Remember the caves? Get out of my house." Micah's voice was steel, but his pulse hammered. "Now." Cornell smiled, revealing teeth that had seen too many hard years. "I was trapped for 6 days, Micah. 6 days in the darkness, while you ran away like a coward. Noah died because of you. That's not what happened, and you know it." "Do I?" Cornell's laugh was hollow. He dropped the photograph. It showed 3 young men at a cave entrance, arms around each other's shoulders. "Micah, Cornell, and Noah Sparks, 12 years ago. You left us to die. You tried to kill us for those artifacts." Micah lunged forward, but Cornell was already moving, sliding past him with unnatural grace toward the window. "6 days, Micah. You have 6 days." Cornell went through the window with practiced ease, disappearing into the night. Micah ran to the window, but Cornell had vanished into the tree line behind their property. He pulled out his phone, hands shaking now, and started to dial 911. Then he stopped. What would he tell them? That a ghost from his past had broken in? That he'd been involved in an illegal cave exploration that ended in death? He looked back at Gracie's bed. She was watching him with those wide, trusting eyes. "Is the bad man gone, Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart. He's gone." Micah forced a smile. "Let's get you back to bed." After settling Gracie with Camille, who'd woken to find them both missing, Micah went downstairs. On the kitchen counter, he found a note that hadn't been there before, written in Cornell's distinctive angular handwriting. "Day 1. I was trapped for 6 days. You have 6 days to feel what I felt. Watch your family closely, Micah. The darkness is coming for all of you." Micah crumpled the note, then smoothed it out again. He needed to think. Cornell was alive, had been alive all this time. What had happened in those caves in the Ozarks? He pulled out his old laptop from the basement, the one he'd never connected to their home network, the one that still had encrypted files from his old life. As he booted it up, memories flooded back. The thrill of discovery, the glint of gold in the flashlight beam, Noah's excited voice echoing off cave walls, and then Cornell's face, twisted with greed and something darker. The cave-in, the screaming, the blood. Micah had run, convinced everyone was dead, terrified of being implicated. He'd changed his name legally, moved states, started over. He'd met Camille 3 years later, fallen in love, built something real and good. And now Cornell was back to destroy it all. Micah opened an encrypted folder and began searching for anything he could use. If Cornell wanted to play games, he'd chosen the wrong person. Micah had spent 12 years becoming someone new, someone stronger. He had everything to lose now, which meant he'd do whatever it took to protect it. The war had begun, and Micah Hall intended to win. Chapter 2. Ghosts and Guilt. Morning came too quickly. Micah made breakfast mechanically while Camille got Gracie ready for school. Her questions about last night met with vague reassurances about nightmares and imagination. But Camille knew him too well. She cornered him in the kitchen after Gracie left for the bus. "What's really going on?" Camille Stanton Hall was a smart woman, a child psychologist with an instinct for lies. Her dark eyes searched his face. You were up all night. You've got that look. What look? The one you get when you're carrying something heavy. She touched his arm. Micah, we've been married 8 years. I know when you're afraid. He wanted to tell her everything. But how do you explain to your wife that your past might get your family killed? Just stress from the Morrison cabinet order. Big deadline coming up. She didn't believe him, but she let it go. For now. After she left for work, Micah made calls. First to his oldest friend in Springfield, Isaac Marshall, a former park ranger who'd helped Micah fall in love with the outdoors again after his trauma. Isaac knew Micah had done cave exploration in his youth, but not about what happened in the Ozarks. Isaac, I need information on someone. Can we meet? Sure, buddy. The usual spot. 2 hours later, Micah sat across from Isaac at a quiet diner on the edge of town. Isaac was built like a bear, with graying temples and kind eyes that had seen plenty of trouble. Cornell Baldwin, Micah said quietly. I need to know what happened to him after the Ozark Cave rescue 12 years ago. Isaac's expression shifted. That's a name I haven't heard in a while. You knew him? We explored caves together. Before I moved here. He was big news back then. Trapped in a cave system for 6 days, barely survived. They found him half dead, dehydrated, talking to himself. He claimed someone had tried to kill him, but the investigation went nowhere. Isaac leaned forward. Why are you asking about this now? He showed up in my daughter's closet last night. Isaac's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. What? Micah explained the visit, leaving out the worst parts. Isaac listened, his expression growing darker. Micah, if this guy is stalking you, you need to call the police. I know. I need to understand what I'm dealing with first. Let me make some calls. While Isaac worked his contacts, Micah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He opened it, and his blood ran cold. It was a photo of Camille at her office, taken through the window. The caption read, Day 2. Pretty wife. Pretty life. Built on lies. Another photo arrived. Gracie on the school playground. The message, she has your eyes. Wonder if she'll scream like Noah did. Micah fought down rage. Cornell was escalating, trying to provoke him into making mistakes. Isaac returned with his phone. Okay, so here's what I found. Cornell Baldwin was institutionalized after the rescue. Severe PTSD, paranoid delusions. He spent 5 years in a psychiatric facility in Arkansas. Then he got out, moved around, and dropped off the grid about 3 years ago. Isaac paused. There's more. His friend Randall Woods filed a missing person report on Cornell last year, then withdrew it a month later. Randall Woods. Micah remembered him, Cornell's cousin, always hovering around their group, never quite fitting in. Yeah, and get this, Randall now works as a private investigator in Kansas City. A pie. That's how Cornell had found him, tracked his family, learned his routine. Micah's phone buzzed again. This time it was a package notification. Something had been delivered to his workshop. I need to go, Micah said, throwing cash on the table. Micah, wait. But he was already moving. At his workshop behind his house, Micah found a small box on the doorstep. No return address. Inside was Noah Sparks's old backpack, the one he'd been wearing in the cave. The canvas was stained dark with old blood. A Polaroid showed the backpack in the cave, surrounded by gold coins, the Spanish treasure they'd found. The note read, I have proof you were there. Proof you left us. Proof you took the treasure. 6 days, Micah. Then I take everything from you like you took everything from me. But Micah hadn't taken the treasure. He'd fled empty-handed, terrified and traumatized. Cornell was rewriting history, building a narrative of betrayal. His workshop phone rang, the landline he kept for business. He answered. Hello, Micah. Cornell's voice was eerily calm. I've been watching you for 4 months. I know your wife drinks Earl Grey tea every morning. I know Gracie can't sleep without her stuffed elephant. I know you kiss your wife goodbye every day at 7:43 a.m. A pause. I've been in your house 23 times while you slept. Micah's skin crawled. What do you want? I want you to feel helpless. I want you to know that everything you love can be taken away in an instant. Just like Noah was taken from me. Just like my sanity was taken. 6 days in the dark while you saved yourself. Cornell, I didn't. 6 days. Cornell's calm shattered. You have 6 days to confess what you did. To tell your perfect wife about the men you left to die. To admit you built this life on theft and murder. Or I'll tell them for you. After I take your daughter. The line went dead. Micah stood in his workshop, surrounded by the honest work of his hands, and realized Cornell's revenge wasn't just about pain. It was about exposure, about destroying the good man Micah had become by revealing the coward he'd been. But Cornell had made a mistake. He'd given Micah 6 days. That was 5 days more than Micah needed. Chapter 3. The Trap Tightens. On day 3, Micah went to the police. He took the notes, the photos, everything. He sat across from Detective Cole Walton, a weathered cop with suspicious eyes, and laid it all out. "Let me get this straight," Walton said slowly. "This Cornell Baldwin is stalking you because of something that happened 12 years ago in a cave." "Yes." "And you were involved in illegal artifact recovery?" "We were young and stupid. We found a cave, found some old coins and Native American items. Cornell wanted to sell them on the black market. My friend Noah and I wanted to report them. Cornell drugged us and tried to collapse the entrance to trap us while he escaped with everything. But the collapse was bigger than planned. It trapped all 3 of us. Noah died. I barely escaped. I thought Cornell died too. It was close enough to the truth." Micah had rehearsed this version, the one that made him sympathetic without admitting he'd fled the scene without reporting anything. Walton made notes. "And you didn't report this because?" "I was terrified. 22 years old, my friend just died. I thought I might be blamed. I panicked and ran." "Uh-huh." Walton didn't look impressed. "And now Cornell wants revenge?" "He's threatening my family." Walton picked up his phone. "Let's bring Mr. Baldwin in for questioning." An hour later, Micah watched through one-way glass as they brought Cornell in. He looked different, cleaned up, coherent, almost normal in khakis and a button-down shirt. Next to him sat a lawyer and Randall Woods. Cornell's story was chillingly different from Micah's. "Detective, I'm the victim here," Cornell said calmly. 12 years ago, Micah Hall convinced me and Noah Sparks to explore a cave system he'd researched. He told us there were valuable artifacts. When we found Spanish gold, Micah tried to take it all. He attacked us, caused a cave-in. Noah died. I barely survived. I've spent 12 years recovering from what Micah did to me. "Then why are you here in Springfield?" Walton asked. "I came to make amends, to find closure. I visited Micah's house to talk to him, to forgive him. But he's been threatening me, telling me to stay away from his family. I think he's afraid I'll expose what he did." Randall Woods nodded. "I can confirm Cornell has been staying with me for the past 3 months. He's been in therapy, working through his trauma. He mentioned wanting to reach out to Micah several times." "That's a lie." Micah burst into the room. "He broke into my house. He threatened my daughter." Cornell looked at him with sad eyes. "Micah, I know you're scared, but you need to face what you did. You need to admit you left us in that cave." "Detective, I have medical records showing Mr. Baldwin's psychiatric treatment," the lawyer said, sliding documents across the table. "He suffers from severe PTSD from being abandoned in that cave by Mr. Hall. He's not a stalker. He's a trauma survivor seeking closure." Walton looked between them, clearly uncertain who to believe. "He sent me photos." Micah pulled out his phone. The texts were gone. All of them. His call history showed no unknown numbers. He deleted them somehow. "Mr. Hall," the lawyer said smoothly, "do you have any proof of these alleged threats?" "The notes. Micah had left them at home. I have physical evidence. We'll need to see it." Walton's tone had shifted. He was looking at Micah differently now, like he might be the unstable one. Cornell stood. "Detective, unless you're charging me with something, I'd like to go. I have a restraining order hearing against Mr. Hall scheduled for tomorrow. For my own protection." They let him go. Micah watched Cornell walk out, Randall beside him. At the door, Cornell looked back and smiled, just a slight curve of his lips that said checkmate. Micah drove home in a fury. Cornell had played this perfectly, establishing himself as the victim while making Micah look paranoid. And somehow, he'd wiped Micah's phone remotely or hacked it. Randall, the PI, would have those skills. At home, Micah tore through his workshop looking for the notes and evidence. They were gone. Someone had been here while he was at the station. Looking for these? Micah spun. Camille stood in the doorway, holding the bloody backpack and notes. "What the hell is this, Micah? Who's Noah Sparks? What caves?" "Camille, I can explain. You've been lying to me. For years." Her voice broke. "There's a man threatening our family, and I don't even know why because my husband has been lying about who he is. I was protecting you. From what? The truth." She threw the evidence on his workbench. "We'll talk about this later. Right now, you need to pick up Gracie from school." I can't even look at you. She left. Micah checked his watch. 2:47 p.m. School let out at 3 o'clock. He drove to Meadowbrook Elementary, his mind racing through possible solutions. He needed help, someone who understood tactics and survival. Isaac would help, but he'd need the full truth. Micah parked in the pickup line at 2:55. Parents streamed out. 3 o'clock came and went. The line moved forward as children emerged. No Gracie. 3:05. Still no Gracie. Micah's phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Day 4 came early, Cornell's voice said. I have your daughter, Micah. She's safe. For now. If you hurt her, I'm not going to hurt her. You are. You're going to make a choice, just like you made me choose between saving myself and saving Noah. Cornell's breathing was heavy, excited. I'm texting you coordinates. Come alone. Come to where it started. You have 3 hours. If you call the police, if you tell anyone, Gracie dies in the dark. Just like Noah. The line went dead. A text arrived. GPS coordinates to the Ozark Mountains, 2 hours away. The location was a different cave system than the original, but Micah knew it from his old exploration days. It was deeper, more dangerous, with narrow passages and underground lakes. Cornell was taking him back into the darkness. Micah called Camille, voice steady despite his terror. Gracie's with me. We're going to get ice cream, talk about the nightmare she had. I'll bring her home later. He couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. Micah drove north, toward the mountains, toward the caves, toward a reckoning 12 years in the making. He stopped at a gas station, bought supplies, flashlights, rope, a knife, lighter fluid. Not much, but Cornell would be watching, would see if he brought weapons or backup. As Springfield disappeared in his rearview mirror, Micah made a decision. Cornell wanted him to feel helpless, wanted him to experience the terror of being trapped. But Micah had something Cornell didn't account for. He wasn't the scared 22-year-old who'd run from the caves. He was a father now, and a father protecting his child was the most dangerous thing in the world. Cornell wanted to drag him into the darkness? Then Micah would show him what real darkness looked like. Chapter 4. The Descent. The Ozark Mountains rose against the late afternoon sky, their ancient limestone faces riddled with holes that led to unmapped underground worlds. Micah parked his truck at the trailhead Cornell had specified, a remote access point used only by experienced spelunkers. The parking area was empty except for a black van, Randall's vehicle. Micah grabbed his supplies and started hiking. The coordinates led to a cave entrance partially hidden by overgrown brush. As he approached, his mind cataloged details automatically: fresh footprints, disturbed vegetation, a rope ladder already anchored. Cornell had prepared this carefully. At the entrance, Micah found a headlamp hanging from a rock with a note. Put this on. Leave your phone in the truck. I'm watching. Micah had expected that. He'd already removed the SIM card and disabled all tracking. He placed the phone on the ground and donned the headlamp. Then he descended. The cave swallowed him immediately. The familiar smell hit. Damp earth, stone, and something organic decaying in the darkness. His heart rate spiked, muscle memory from 12 years ago flooding back. The last time he'd been in a cave, he'd crawled out covered in Noah's blood. Welcome back, Micah. Cornell's voice echoed from deeper in the system. I've missed this, haven't you? The absolute darkness. The weight of all that stone above you. Where's my daughter? Micah called out, moving forward carefully. The passage was wide here, but would narrow ahead. He remembered this system. They'd explored it briefly during their artifact hunting days. Deeper. Keep walking. Follow the glow sticks. Chemical lights marked a path leading downward. Micah followed them through twisting passages, descending into the earth. His claustrophobia tried to surface, but he shoved it down. Gracie needed him focused. After 20 minutes, the passage opened into a large chamber. In the center, Gracie sat in a metal cage barely 4 feet square, her hands bound. She was crying but appeared unharmed. Cornell stood nearby, holding a remote detonator. Daddy, Gracie sobbed. I'm here, sweetheart. Micah stepped forward, but Cornell raised the detonator. Stop. One more step, and I collapse this whole chamber. See those charges? Cornell gestured at the walls where small explosives had been carefully placed. This isn't about killing you, Micah. It's about teaching you. In the harsh light of their combined headlamps, Micah saw what 12 years had done to Cornell. His face was a mask of controlled madness, his movements jerky with nervous energy. He was popping pills from a bottle, anxiety medication, probably. You left me in the dark, Cornell continued. For 6 days I sat in blackness, so complete I couldn't see my own hands. I screamed until my voice gave out. I drank cave water and ate nothing. I felt myself dying by inches while you were safe above ground, stealing my discovery, building your perfect life. That's not what happened, Cornell. You caused the cave-in. You tried to kill us for those artifacts. Liar. Cornell's finger twitched on the detonator. I've had 12 years to remember every detail. You were greedy. You wanted all the gold. You and Noah teamed up against me. When I tried to stop you, you caused the collapse and ran, leaving me buried alive. That's your trauma talking, not reality. The doctors told you this, didn't they? That your memories aren't reliable. Cornell's face contorted. The doctors are wrong. I know what happened. And now you're going to feel it. He pressed a button on a second remote. A hissing sound filled the chamber. What is that? Micah demanded. Carbon dioxide. I'm venting it from a deep source. This chamber will become unbreathable in about 30 minutes. Gracie's cage has its own air supply. She'll last longer. Cornell walked toward a narrow passage on the far side of the chamber. Here's your choice, Micah. There's an exit through that passage, but it's tight. Barely wide enough for a child. It's a 100-foot crawl through spaces that get smaller and smaller until they open to an underground lake. On the other side of that lake is freedom. Micah's stomach clenched. He knew this passage, called the Devil's Throat by local spelunkers. It was deadly. Several explorers had gotten stuck and died trying to navigate it. You can try to get through yourself, Cornell continued, but you won't make it. You're too big. Or you can send Gracie through alone. A 7-year-old child, crawling through suffocating darkness, swimming across an underground lake where she can't see which way is up. She might make it. She might not. Or you can both stay here and suffocate together. Just like I thought I would. You're insane. No, Micah. I'm fair. You made a choice 12 years ago that killed Noah and destroyed me. Now you make a choice that destroys you. Whatever you pick, you lose. Cornell backed toward the passage. I'll be waiting on the other side of the lake. If Gracie makes it through, I'll let her go. I'll even call for rescue for you. But you have to send her into the dark alone. You have to abandon your child to save her. Just like you abandoned us. He disappeared into the shadows. Micah ran to the cage, examining the lock. It was sophisticated, electronic, requiring a code. He pulled out his knife and started working on the cage bars, but they were reinforced steel. Daddy, I'm scared, Gracie whimpered. I know, baby. I know. But I'm going to get you out. His mind raced. The air was already getting thicker. 30 minutes wasn't enough time to cut through the cage. And even if he could, the chamber was filling with CO2. Think. Cornell was clever, but not infallible. What was the flaw in his trap? Micah examined the passage, the Devil's Throat. It was as bad as he remembered. Dark, tight, angling downward. But he'd studied cave systems for years. He knew that tight passages often had alternate routes, hidden side channels that fed into the same destination. He pulled out his flashlight and started mapping the chamber walls, looking for air currents. There, a small draft coming from behind a rock fall on the western wall. He climbed over and found a gap barely 2 feet wide, leading downward. Gracie, listen to me carefully. I'm going to find another way. I'm going to get ahead of Cornell and come up through that lake from below. When you hear me call your name 3 times, you'll know it's safe. But Daddy, I'm stuck. Micah examined the cage more carefully. The electronic lock was sophisticated, but Cornell had to have a manual override somewhere. He'd need it in case of battery failure. There, a small keyhole under the electronic panel. Using his knife, Micah jimmied the lock. It took precious minutes, but the cage clicked open. Come here, sweetheart. He held her close. We're going to outsmart the bad man. Are you ready to be brave? She nodded, trembling. Micah gave her his flashlight and explained the plan. Then he started squeezing through the gap he'd found, leaving Gracie with the headlamp. The passage was brutally tight, scraping his shoulders, forcing him to exhale to fit through spaces that seemed impossibly small. This was Cornell's terror, being trapped in stone, unable to move forward or back, the weight of mountains pressing down. But Micah pushed through it, inch by inch. After an eternity of crawling, the passage opened into a vertical shaft. Below, he heard water. This fed into the underground lake system. He'd gambled right. Micah used his rope, anchoring it to a rock formation, and rappelled down into the freezing water. The lake was completely dark, the temperature shocking. He took a deep breath and dove. Swimming through underground lakes was a nightmare of disorientation. Micah kept one hand on the wall, following it, surfacing when he found air pockets. His lungs burned. The cold sapped his strength. But he thought of Gracie alone in that chamber, terrified, and pushed harder. Finally, he saw a light above, Cornell's headlamp, shining down from the shore. Micah surfaced silently in the shadows, filled his lungs, and dove again, swimming wide. He emerged behind Cornell, who stood watching the passage entrance where he expected Gracie to appear. Randall Woods was there too, holding a camera, documenting Micah's choice, no doubt. Micah burst from the water and tackled Randall first, the element of surprise giving him precious seconds. They hit the ground hard. The camera shattered. Cornell spun, shocked. "How did you? You forgot I know these caves, Cornell." Micah grabbed a rock and threw it at Cornell's feet, making him dance backward. "And you forgot something else. I'm not scared anymore. You've been living with your fear for 12 years. I've been living with my guilt. And guilt is heavier than fear." Cornell pulled a knife, but his hands were shaking, his medication wearing off. Micah could see the terror in Cornell's eyes, the realization that his perfect trap had failed. "Where's the remote for the chamber?" Micah demanded. "Where's the code for the CO2? Randall groaned on the ground. Micah kicked him once, hard, and Randall pulled out a phone with a timer, 22 minutes left. Micah grabbed it, and Cornell lunged at him with the knife. They grappled, rolling across the stone. Cornell was lighter, faster, but Micah was fighting for his daughter. He got the knife away, pinned Cornell down. "The code," Micah roared. Cornell laughed, a broken sound. "There is no code. The cage opens automatically when the timer ends. But by then, the chamber will be." Micah didn't wait. He pulled Cornell up and dragged him toward the Devil's Throat passage. "You're going to crawl back through and get my daughter out. Now." "I can't," Cornell screamed. "It's too tight. I'll get stuck. Then you'll die in there." "Fitting, don't you think?" Cornell's face crumpled with pure terror. "Please, Micah. Please don't make me go in there." For a moment, Micah almost felt pity. Then he thought of Gracie's terrified face in that cage and shoved Cornell toward the passage. Start crawling. Chapter 5, The Hunt. Cornell's screaming echoed through the passage as Micah forced him into the Devil's Throat. The narrow confines triggered Cornell's worst trauma, and within seconds, he was hyperventilating, panicking, wedging himself tighter with his flailing. "Cornell, stop fighting, or you'll get stuck." Micah shouted into the passage. He couldn't see Cornell anymore. The man had vanished into the stone throat. Behind him, Randall was stirring. Micah kicked him again, harder this time, then used his rope to hogtie the man. "Stay there, or I'll leave you for the police." The timer on Randall's phone showed 18 minutes. Cornell's voice came from the passage, distant and terrified. I can't breathe the walls. Move forward. Get to my daughter. I can't." The panic in Cornell's voice was absolute. Then the passage went silent. Micah's blood ran cold. Cornell had either passed out or gotten completely stuck. Either way, he wasn't going to reach Gracie. New plan. Micah studied the lake system. If he could swim back the way he came, up that vertical shaft, through the tight passage, he might reach Gracie with 15 minutes to spare. But the swim had nearly killed him the first time, and now he was exhausted. He had to try. Micah dove into the water and started swimming hard. The cold shocked his system again, but adrenaline kept him moving. He found the shaft, climbed up using the rope he'd left, and crawled through the tight passage. Every second was agony. His muscles screamed. His lungs burned. But he thought of Camille's face when she learned what he'd kept from her. He thought of Gracie's trust in him. He thought of the man he'd become, not the coward who ran from the caves, but the father who would die before abandoning his child. Micah exploded into the chamber with 7 minutes left. Gracie was unconscious in the cage, the CO2 taking effect. The cage door was still locked. He grabbed the bars and pulled with everything he had. Metal groaned. He repositioned, planted his feet, and pulled again, roaring with effort. The lock mechanism bent, then snapped. Micah grabbed Gracie and ran for the exit passage, not the Devil's Throat, but the main route he'd come in through. It would be slower, but it was survivable. He ran through the dark, Gracie's limp body in his arms, following the glow sticks in reverse. His headlamp died. He kept running by feel, one hand on the wall, stumbling, falling, getting up. Behind him, he heard a rumbling. Cornell's explosives, either triggered by timer or by Cornell's panic. The cave system began to collapse. Micah ran faster, felt fresh air ahead, saw daylight. He burst from the cave entrance as the hillside shuddered. Rock crashed behind him. The entrance partially collapsed, sealing the system. Micah laid Gracie on the ground and started CPR. "Come on, baby. Come on." She coughed, gasped, her eyes fluttering open. "Daddy, I'm here. I'm here." He held her tight, tears streaming down his face. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called emergency services, probably hikers who'd seen the collapse. Micah pulled out his phone, turning it back on. Messages flooded in. Voicemails, texts, all from Camille, increasingly frantic. But there was one message that stopped him cold. It was from Cornell's phone, sent 10 minutes ago while Cornell was stuck in the devil's throat. "This isn't over. Randall has your wife. Checkmate, Micah. The real game is just beginning." A second text, this one from an unknown number with a photo. Camille, bound and gagged in what looked like an underground bunker. The message read, "The caves were just the opening. Your wife is in my real trap, my family's old fallout shelter, buried under 30 feet of concrete and earth. I welded the door shut from the inside before I went to the caves. If I don't come back, she dies alone in the dark, just like I almost did. Find her, Micah. You have until she runs out of air. I estimate 3 days. Good luck." Micah's world tilted. This had never been about the caves. Cornell had used himself as bait, knowing Micah would come for Gracie. The whole cave scenario was a distraction while Randall took Camille. He looked at Gracie, then at his phone. The police were coming. Cornell was trapped or dead in the caves. But Camille, "Daddy, where's Mommy?" Micah's hands shook as he called Isaac. "I need you. Now. And I need you to not ask questions yet." When Isaac arrived 20 minutes later, driving like a madman from Springfield, he found Micah and Gracie at the cave entrance, surrounded by emergency vehicles. Paramedics were treating Gracie. Police were asking questions. Micah pulled Isaac aside. "Take care of her. Tell the police I'm cooperating fully, but need to get something from my truck. Don't let them follow me." "Micah, what's happening?" "Cornell has Camille. In a bunker somewhere. I don't have time to explain." He gripped Isaac's shoulders. "Keep Gracie safe. I'm going to get my wife back. Let the police. There's no time. By the time I explain everything, by the time they believe me, by the time they organize a search, Camille will be dead." Micah's voice broke. "Please, Isaac. Trust me." Isaac looked at Gracie, then back at Micah. "Go. I've got her. But Micah, don't do anything stupid." Too late for that. Micah ran for his truck. He had 3 days to find an underground bunker in the Ozarks that could be anywhere within 100 square miles. Cornell's family had owned property throughout the region, old homesteads, hunting lands, forgotten parcels. Micah drove south toward Kansas City, toward Randall Woods' office. If anyone knew where Cornell's family properties were, it would be the PI who'd been helping him. The hunt had become a race against time. And this time, Cornell had played it perfectly. Or so he thought. Chapter 6. The Turn. Micah broke into Randall Woods' office at midnight using skills he'd learned from a misspent youth. The private investigation firm occupied a dingy strip mall in Kansas City's industrial district. Inside, Micah found files, computers, and a conspiracy board that made his blood run cold. Photos of his family covered one wall. Surveillance shots spanning months. Camille at the grocery store. Gracie at school. Micah at his workshop. Red strings connected to documents, property deeds, old news articles about the cave rescue, medical records. But what caught Micah's attention was a map of the Ozarks with 3 locations circled. Each was a property once owned by the Baldwin family. Handwritten notes beside each, 2 obvious. Foundation cracked, unsafe, and beside the third, shelter intact. Reinforced 1962. Perfect. Micah took a photo of the map and ran for his truck. The third location was 90 miles southeast, near an abandoned township called Bellevue. According to the property records Micah found in Randall's files, Cornell's grandfather had built a Cold War-era fallout shelter there in the 1960s, buried in a hillside on the edge of the family's old farm. Micah called Isaac from the road. "How's Gracie?" "Sleeping." Police took her statement. "They're treating this as a kidnapping case now. They found Cornell in the cave, alive but unconscious. Severe panic attack. He's in the hospital under guard. Isaac paused. They also found Randall hogtied. He's talking, cutting a deal. Micah, they have warrants out for you. They think you might hurt Cornell or skip town. I'm finding Camille first. Then I'll deal with the law. Where are you going? Micah hesitated, then gave Isaac the address. If I don't call you in 6 hours, send everyone. He hung up before Isaac could argue. The drive took an hour and a half through dark mountain roads. Micah reached the old Baldwin property at 1:47 a.m. The farmhouse had burned down decades ago, leaving only a foundation and memories. Behind it, a hillside rose against the starlit sky. Micah grabbed his equipment, now including a crowbar, sledgehammer, and portable angle grinder he'd bought at a 24-hour hardware store, and started searching. The shelter entrance was hidden beneath overgrown brush and a rusted metal door set into the hillside. Fresh scratches around the edges showed recent activity. Micah's heart pounded as he approached. The door was welded shut from the inside, just as Cornell had promised. Thick steel, industrial welds. Cornell had been thorough. Camille. Micah pounded on the door. Camille, can you hear me? Faint sounds from within. Crying. Then her voice, muffled but clear. Micah? I'm here. I'm getting you out. Hurry the air. Micah fired up the angle grinder. Sparks flew as he cut into the welds. The battery-powered tool was slow, too slow. Each weld took minutes to cut through. There were dozens of them. Hours passed. The sky lightened. Micah's arms screamed with fatigue, but he kept cutting. He called Isaac. I found her. But I need help. Heavy equipment. Now. Police or no police? I don't care anymore. Just get her out. Isaac made calls. Micah kept cutting. At 6:23 a.m., with half the welds cut, Micah's grinder died. Battery dead. He switched to the sledgehammer, pounding at the door. The metal dented but didn't give. Micah. Camille's voice was weaker now. I love you. Tell Gracie. No. Don't you dare. Don't you dare give up. Micah hammered harder, screaming his rage and fear. The door bent slightly. A gap appeared between the frame and the door. Not much, but enough to get the crowbar in. Micah wedged the crowbar into the gap and pulled with everything he had. Metal groaned. He repositioned, pulled again. The door shifted an inch. Sirens in the distance. Isaac and the cavalry were coming. Micah pulled again and again, each time gaining another inch. His hands bled. His muscles tore. But he pulled. The door gave way at 6:51 a.m., shrieking as it tore free from its frame. Micah plunged into darkness and found Camille collapsed on a cot, barely conscious. He scooped her up and carried her into the morning light. Emergency vehicles roared up the dirt road. Paramedics took over, giving Camille oxygen. Police surrounded Micah, hands on weapons. Micah Hall, you're under arrest. Arrest me later. Micah shouted. My wife is dying. Detective Walton emerged from a patrol car. He took in the scene, the cut welds, Micah's bloody hands, Camille being loaded into an ambulance, and held up a hand to his officers. Stand down. Let the paramedics work. As Camille was being stabilized, she grabbed Micah's hand. The truth, she whispered. Tell me the truth. All of it. And right there, with police surrounding them, with the morning sun burning away the night's terror, Micah told her everything. The caves, the artifacts, the betrayal, Noah's death, Cornell's revenge, his 12 years of running. Camille listened, tears streaming down her face. When he finished, she squeezed his hand. We'll get through this, she said. But Micah, no more lies. Ever. No more lies, he promised. Detective Walton approached. Mr. Hall, we need to take your statement. We found evidence in Randall Woods' office, surveillance equipment, planning documents. Combined with Cornell Baldwin's confession from his hospital bed, we're piecing together what happened. Cornell's confessing? He's having a complete breakdown. Randall's already flipped, giving us everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. Walton's expression was grim. This is the most elaborate revenge plot I've seen in 30 years. But Mr. Hall, we still need to address your role in the original cave incident. The statute of limitations has passed on most of it, but there are questions about the artifacts, about Noah Sparks's death. I'll answer everything, Micah said. But first, I need to see my daughter. They let him go with a police escort. At the hospital, Gracie ran into his arms. You saved Mommy. Yes, sweetheart. I did. But as he held his daughter, Watching Camille being wheeled in for observation, Micah realized Cornell's revenge had accomplished something after all. It had torn open old wounds, exposed buried secrets, and forced Micah to confront the man he'd been. The question was, could he live with who he'd become in the process? Chapter 7. The Counter Trap. Cornell Baldwin's psychiatric evaluation revealed what Micah had suspected. 12 years of trauma had fractured the man's grip on reality. He'd mixed memories with paranoia, creating a narrative where Micah was the villain. But facts were facts. Forensic analysis of the original cave site confirmed Cornell's fingerprints on explosives residue. Security footage from the Ozark camping store showed Cornell buying demolition supplies 12 years ago, shortly before the cave-in. Noah's autopsy photos, kept on file, showed injuries consistent with Cornell's attack, not a cave collapse. But Cornell wasn't done. 3 days after Camille's rescue, while Micah was giving his statement at the police station, his phone rang. Cornell, calling from the psychiatric wing of the county hospital. "You think you've won." Cornell's voice was eerily calm, medicated but lucid. "You think this is over." "Cornell, it's finished. The police have everything. You're going to prison." "Am I? Or am I going to a mental facility where I'll be out in 5 years with good behavior and therapy?" A laugh. "You know what I realized, Micah? I'm not the crazy one. The doctors say I have PTSD, that my memories are unreliable. That means I'm not responsible for what I did. I'm a victim." Micah's grip tightened on the phone. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that when I get out, I'll come back. And maybe next time I won't be so merciful. Maybe next time Gracie won't be so lucky." The line went dead. Micah sat in the police station, rage building. Cornell was right. With a good lawyer and the psychiatric evaluation, he'd likely avoid serious prison time. The justice system would call him mentally ill, a victim of trauma. He'd be treated, medicated, and released. And then what? Another attack? Another threat to his family? Detective Walton entered the room. "That was Cornell?" "Yeah." "What did he say?" Micah made a decision. "He apologized. Said he was sorry for everything." Walton looked doubtful, but nodded. "We're transferring him to state psychiatric evaluation tomorrow. Randall Woods is pleading guilty to conspiracy, kidnapping, and a dozen other charges. He'll do 15 years minimum. And Cornell? That's up to the evaluators and the courts. Could be 2 years, could be 20. Walton paused. "But between you and me, Hall, with his condition and a decent lawyer, he'll be out before you know it." That night, Micah couldn't sleep. He lay next to Camille in their bed, listening to her breathe, thinking about Cornell's words. The system had failed. Cornell would walk free, and when he did, Micah's family would never be safe. He thought about calling Isaac, but Isaac would tell him to trust the law. He thought about hiring security, but security could be breached. He thought about moving, changing their names again, but Cornell had found him once. He'd find him again. No, this needed to end permanently. Micah spent the next day researching. Cornell's transfer to the state facility would happen via ambulance. The route was predictable. Security would be minimal, just 2 guards for a mentally ill patient in restraints. But Micah wasn't planning an escape. He was planning something far more elegant. He called a number he'd memorized years ago, one he'd sworn never to use. It rang 3 times before a gruff voice answered. "Who is this?" "It's Micah Hall. I need to cash in that favor you owe me." The voice was silent for a long moment. "That favor's 12 years old, Hall. You said it never expired. You said if I ever needed anything, anytime, you'd deliver. What do you need?" Micah explained. When he finished, the voice laughed, a dark, knowing sound. "That's cold, Hall. I like it. Consider it done." Micah hung up and deleted the call log. Then he went home to his family and acted like everything was normal. The next day, Cornell's ambulance left the county hospital at 2 p.m. Micah was at his workshop, providing himself an alibi, when his phone buzzed with a news alert. Psychiatric patient escapes during transfer. Cornell Baldwin, connected to recent kidnapping case, overpowered guards and fled into the Ozark wilderness. Manhunt underway. But Cornell hadn't escaped. Micah's contact, an old friend from his cave exploring days who now worked in search and rescue, had simply made it look that way. The reality was simpler and more permanent. Cornell was in a cave. A very specific cave. And he wouldn't be leaving. Chapter 8. Buried Alive. The call came at 11:47 p.m. Detective Walton, exhausted and frustrated. "Hall, we need your help. Cornell's headed for the caves." We think he's having a psychotic break, reverting to his trauma. You know those cave systems better than anyone. We need you to help us find him before he hurts himself. Micah had been expecting this. Of course. Where do you need me? The old Bellevue Cave Complex. Same area where your family's incident occurred. We think he's trying to go back to the original site. Perfect. Micah met the search team at midnight. They had dogs, thermal imaging, a full SAR squad. Micah guided them through the surface caves, the easy systems, the ones tourists explored. He pointed out passages, made suggestions, all while slowly steering them away from where Cornell actually was. Because Micah knew exactly where Cornell was. He'd put him there. His contact had done the job perfectly. During the escape, Cornell had been sedated and taken to a cave system Micah had specified. A deep, isolated system called the Widowmaker, known for its lethal tight passages and unstable rock formations. Cornell had been placed in a chamber with minimal supplies and no way out. The search continued through the night. Micah played his part, the concerned citizen trying to help, all while leading them in circles. At dawn, they found evidence. Cornell's hospital gown, torn and bloody, at the entrance to a dangerous system. He went in there? Walton stared at the narrow opening. That's suicide. No one survives the Widowmaker. Cornell's not thinking clearly, Micah said. He's probably reliving his trauma, trying to confront it. They sent cameras in on long cables. The passages were too tight for humans beyond the first 50 feet. The cameras showed nothing. We'll keep searching, Walton said. But if he's in there, it's been 18 hours. Without water, in his condition. Micah nodded gravely. I hope you find him. He went home to his family, played with Gracie, held Camille, and slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. 3 days later, they found Cornell's body. He'd made it into one of the deepest chambers of the Widowmaker before collapsing. The autopsy showed dehydration, exposure, and signs of a massive panic attack. His fingernails were torn off from clawing at the walls. The official ruling, Cornell Baldwin, suffering from severe PTSD and psychosis, escaped custody and died attempting to confront his trauma in the caves where it began. A tragedy, but a predictable end for a mind shattered by 12 years of torment. At Cornell's memorial service, sparsely attended, Micah stood in the back. He felt no guilt, no remorse. Cornell had threatened his family. The law would have failed to protect them. So Micah had done what was necessary. Was it murder? Technically, yes. Cornell had been sedated and placed in a situation where death was nearly certain. But no one would ever prove it. The escape looked legitimate. The choice to enter the Widowmaker appeared to be Cornell's own final, mad decision. Randall Woods, facing his own trial, never mentioned the discrepancies. He'd been too busy saving himself to notice the details that didn't quite add up. The only person who suspected the truth was Isaac. He cornered Micah at the memorial. That favor you called in. The one from your old caving buddy who works in SAR. I don't know what you're talking about. Cornell's body was in a section of the Widowmaker that requires technical climbing to access. But he was in a hospital gown. No gear. No rope marks on his body. Isaac's eyes were hard. How did he get there? Micah met his gaze steadily. Cornell was desperate and crazy. Who knows what he was capable of? Micah, drop it, Isaac. Please. For Gracie's sake. For Camille's sake. Just drop it. Isaac stared at him for a long moment, then sighed. You're my friend, and I understand why you did what you did. But Micah, this changes you. You know that, right? I know. Can you live with it? Micah thought about Gracie's laughter. Camille's smile. The peaceful nights without fear. Yeah, he said quietly. I can live with it just fine. Chapter 9. The Light Above. 6 months after Cornell's death, life had found a new rhythm for the Hall family. Micah sold his woodworking business. The workshop held too many bad memories. Instead, he started working with a local organization that helped trauma survivors, people recovering from accidents, violence, PTSD. His own experiences, both as a victim and as someone who'd learned to survive, made him an effective counselor. Camille went through therapy herself, working through the betrayal of Micah's lies and the trauma of being buried alive. It was hard work. There were nights of arguments, days of silence, moments when Micah thought he might lose her. But they pushed through. Marriage counseling, honest conversations, slowly rebuilding trust. Gracie was remarkably resilient. Child psychologists said kids often bounced back faster than adults. She had nightmares for the first month, but they faded. She stopped asking about the bad man and started talking about horses and school friends again. They moved to a new house on the other side of Springfield, a ranch-style home with no basement, no closets large enough to hide in, and security lights that bathed the property in illumination every night. Randall Woods was convicted and sentenced to 18 years. He sent Micah a letter from prison. Cornell was sick. I should have gotten him help instead of helping him hurt people. I'm sorry for what we did to your family. Use your second chance better than I used mine. Micah burned the letter but kept the sentiment. The artifacts that had started it all, the Spanish gold and Native American relics, remained buried in the original cave system, exactly where they'd been 12 years ago. Micah had filed an anonymous tip with the State Archaeological Service. Let the professionals handle it. He wanted no part of that treasure anymore. On a cool autumn evening, Micah took Gracie camping. Just the two of them, sleeping under stars, no tent, no barriers between them and the sky. It was deliberate exposure therapy, for both of them. Daddy, Gracie asked, lying in her sleeping bag beside him. Are you scared of caves now? Sometimes, Micah admitted. But you know what I learned? Being scared is okay. It's what you do with that fear that matters. What did you do with your fear? Micah thought about Cornell screaming in the Widowmaker's darkness. He pushed the image away. I faced it, he said simply. And I protected the people I love. Like me and Mommy? Exactly like you and Mommy. Gracie was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm glad you're my daddy. Micah's throat tightened. I'm glad you're my daughter, sweetheart. They lay there watching the stars wheel overhead. Constellations Micah had learned as a young man exploring the wilderness, before everything went wrong, when adventure was still innocent and darkness was just the absence of light. Now he knew better. Darkness wasn't the absence of light. It was the presence of fear, of guilt, of choices that haunted you. But above the darkness, there was always light. You just had to keep climbing toward it. Micah held his daughter's hand and watched the stars, finally at peace with the man he'd become. Not perfect, not innocent, but strong enough to protect what mattered. Cornell had wanted him to feel helpless, trapped, destroyed by guilt. Instead, Micah had learned something Cornell never could. That love was stronger than revenge, that protecting family justified any darkness you had to embrace, and that sometimes the only way to escape the past was to bury it so deep it could never claw its way back to the surface. He'd made his choice. He'd do it again. And he'd sleep soundly every night knowing his family was safe. The caves were behind him now. Only the light remained. And that was enough. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.